Okay, our next task is to handle the not found. So if we click on the 404, then we're going to a page for not found, but we just haven't created this component yet. So let's go back to VS Code and let's clean things up at the top. And what we want to do here is go to our third tab where we're creating things. And what we want to do is just cd up and we'll cd into our errors folder. And what we'll do is we'll just create a new component. So we'll say nggc and we'll say not dash found and we'll skip dash tests and press return. And we now have this component. So let's go to this component's HTML and we'll just look for not found, go to the template, and we'll just keep this super simple. We don't need to do much for this. We'll add a container. So we'll say div.container, and what we'll do inside here is we'll just say h1 and we'll say not found, and we'll give them a button to go back to the home page. So we'll say give this a class and we'll set this equal to btn info and btn-lg, and then we can just add a router link and we can send them to wherever we want to send them to, but I'm just going to send them to the home page just in case they're not authorized when they do this, and I'll just say return to home page. You could be more advanced than I'm being here. You could check to see if they're authenticated and give them a button to go back to the members page, and if they're not authenticated you could send them back to the home page. I'll leave that for you to decide if you want to do that, but I'm just going to use this as our not found page. And what we need to do then is go to our app routing components or module, and we'll just add a new link or a new route inside here, and we'll set the path to not dash found, and the component for this of course is going to be our new not found component. And if we go and take a look at the effect this has had, then we can already see our not brilliantly designed not found page, but it does what it says on the tin. It says something's not found. Let's go to the errors, and if we click on 404, then we get taken to our not found page and we can go home from there. Please feel free to add an extra bit of pizzazz onto your not found page if you're not satisfied with the effort I put into that one. It's the functionality that I'm concerned with here. So since we're here, another small fix we'll make. If we try and log in as Lisa, for example, and just put in a bad password and log in, we get two toasts, and one of them is object because we can't display an object as text inside a toast, but we don't need to because this is being handled. So what we'll do, we'll resolve that as well while we're here, and we'll just go to the nav bar or the nav component itself. And what we want to do is remove the error handling inside here now. We don't need it anymore. And if we go back and take a look, and let's just try that one more time, log in as Lisa and a rubbish password and log in, now we just get the 401 unauthorized. And that's more like it. So what we'll take a look at next is doing something with our 500 error, and that's what we'll take a look at next. Okay, the next one we're going to deal with is this 500 server error. Now we've got a link set up to redirect us to this location, and just like the not found page, we'll go ahead and create a component for this. And inside our errors, we'll say nggc and we'll say server-error, and we'll skip the tests and press return. And this has now been created. So what we'll do, we'll just go back to our error interceptor because we did something slightly different with this one. And in the case of a 500, what we're doing is we're adding the error to the router state through this thing called navigation extras. So what we want to do when that component loads is get hold of that error so that we can do something inside the page after we've redirected the user to this particular route. So let's open up our server error component. And what we need to do inside here is we need to inject our router into this so we've got access to the router state. And we'll say router and router. Now there's only one place we can get hold of the router state, and that's inside the constructor. we can't access it inside the onInit. We can only access this state inside the constructor here. So what we'll do is we'll say const navigation equals and list.router .get current navigation. And what we'll do is we'll add a class property for the error. So we'll say error and give it a type of any. And what we'll do in here is we'll say list.error equals, and what we want to do is check the navigation, but we're going to be safe here because we don't know if we're going to have any of this information, because what's going to happen as soon as the user refreshes their page, then we immediately lose whatever's inside this navigation state. We only get it once when the route is activated when we redirect a user to this server error page. So we're going to be safe, and we're going to use these question marks, which are referred to as optional chaining operators. And what we can do is say that we want to check the extras, and once again we'll use optional chaining, and then we want to check the state. Once again optional chaining, and then the error inside there. And then what we can do is go to the component template. So we'll go to the server error component template, and what we're going to do inside here is just give you some help about what to do if you encounter an internal server error. So we're going to say internal server error, and we'll add a tip here saying refreshing the page will make the error disappear. Exclamation mark, because it will. As soon as you refresh the page, all of our error information is going to disappear. So we'll use an ng container here. And inside this container, what we'll do first of all is we'll check to see if we do have the error. So we'll use ngIf to do that. And we'll just check to see if we have anything in the error object. And then we'll add an h5, and we'll give it a class equal to text dash danger, and we'll say error, and in here what we'll do is we'll say error.message, and then we'll add a paragraph, and we'll say font dash weight dash bold, and we'll say note, if you are seeing this, then Angular is probably not to blame. And then we'll add another paragraph and say what to do next. And then we'll just add an ordered list, and this is just going to be some simple instructions about what to do now if you're seeing this page, because if you are seeing this page, that means you've got a 500 server error, and there can be hundreds of different reasons for getting this. So your job when you see this is to find out more information. So the first thing we want to do though is make sure that it's a server error. So these are pretty basic instructions, so sorry about this, but I do see the Q&A, and a lot of the questions related to server errors do start off with not getting as much information as is possible to get. So the first step is to open the Chrome DevTools. Always, always, always the first step. The next step is to inspect the network tab, and then you're going to look for the failing request. One of them will be in red. So check the failing request. After that, what we want to do is examine the request URL and make sure this is correct. Because if you're going to a different server and you're getting an error from a different server than what you actually think you're supposed to be going to, then you can be spending a lot of time troubleshooting for a problem that doesn't exist. I have seen it before where developers requested resource from a different server and spent hours troubleshooting the wrong server because they had a bad URL in the client application. So don't fall into that trap. Always examine the request. Where are you going to this error? And then finally what we want to do is reproduce the error in Postman. Postman is a great tool. And it allows us to rule out Angular being the problem, because if we see the same response, then the issue is not with Angular. It's got nothing to do with a client if you can reproduce the error in Postman and you get the same response. It doesn't matter how long you spend trying to fix Angular if Angular is not the problem. You're not going to solve the problem. So what we'll do next after this is we'll add another paragraph and we'll say following is the stack trace. This is where your investigation should start. And what we'll do inside here, we'll just add a code tag and give it some margin top of 5. And then we'll give it some style and we'll give it a background color of white smoke. And inside this tag we'll have the error.details. And what we're going to do here is test and make sure we can see this error when we reproduce it. But first of all, we need to go to our app routing component. So let's add another route so that we can get to this. And just underneath the not found, we'll change this to a server -error. And we'll change the component to the server error component. And if we go take a look at our browser now, well, we can see we've got the page, but let's go back to our errors. And what we should find is that when we click on this, we get the details of the exception. And this is what we're looking for. So we get the error message, the object reference not set to an instance of object. We get the list of things to do next. Please do follow the guidance on this, because this is a training course and there's every chance that you'll run into a server error. And the troubleshooting steps are pretty straightforward to go ahead and make sure that you start investigating the appropriate thing. And in this case, when we see a server error, there's not much we can do in Angular to go and fix it. So do follow those steps, make sure you can reproduce the error in Postman, and make sure the URL is correct. And once you've got that far, then it's a case of taking a look at the stack trace. And at the beginning of the stack trace, it tells you exactly which line of code was responsible for the error. And this is where you should be looking to see what's next. What happened on line 39? Why did this specific exception occur? And then it's a case of troubleshooting and tracing the steps to try and resolve the problem. But every problem starts with getting as much information about the problem as possible, and that's why we've given ourselves this server error page. You wouldn't want to give this to an end user. And of course, even in production mode, we probably wouldn't want this page, but because this is a training course, we're using this for our server errors. But like I say, in a real-time production world application, you'd probably want something a bit more professional than just this at the top, because this is all they're going to see, or these first two lines is all they're going to see when we're running in production mode. They're not going to see any of the rest. Or they're not going to see the stack trace, I should say. They'll still see some of this text that we put in there manually. And just to finish off, by the way, as well, something I just noticed there, what we want to do if we run into a route that we don't have is, instead of sending them to the home component, we'll just send them to the not found component. So if somebody goes into our page and looks for a page that doesn't exist, then they also get taken to our not found page and we can go home from there. So this is all we're going to cover for error handling just now. And what we'll do is we'll take a look at our changes and we'll stage our changes, and then we'll say end of section 7. And we'll go and commit these and we'll send them up to GitHub. And we'll finish off this section with a summary.